We are live.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Planning Board Town of East Hampton meeting of June 9th, 2021. We have a number of matters on, 3 matters on for site plan review. If you were looking at the agenda that was posted on the town clerk's website, the inlet seafood awning application has been adjourned, I believe. So we have three other site plan reviews, and we have a number of matters on our, what we call our regular meeting, including a public hearing on the 80 Firestone Bluff Crest Cottages application, which will take place at 7 o'clock. We also have at this time we'll take a motion to move into executive session, just so that the public understands. We're going to be meeting with our counsel about a litigated matter, and in order, and that has to be announced at the meeting, that we are going from our meeting, our public meeting, into executive session. We have to be in the meeting and then announce and go into executive session. So in a moment, I'll take a motion to do that. But we're doing it at the beginning of this meeting rather than at the end of the meeting, because we have the planning board will be hearing from its outside counsel regarding this matter. And rather than keep counsel waiting for 2 hours, for which I'm not familiar with the billing practices, but in the world of the law, it's very possible that there would be a bill associated with that 2-hour wait. In order to avoid that possibility, we're going to go into our executive session right away, hold the executive session, and then when we come back, if we come back before 7 o'clock, we'll take care of some small business. But if we come back at 7 or after, we will move directly into the public hearing on the 80 Bluff application. So with that,
Okay.
I'd like to take a motion that we move into executive session.
Yeah, I make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss ongoing St. Peter's Chapel litigation with counsel.
Is there a second? From the board, is there a second? Ian, was that you?
That was me, yeah, second.
Thank you. All those in favor of moving into executive session at this time, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, no opposed. So we're moving into executive session, and LTV will put up a placard, I suppose, that says that we will be back, and we will be back. So see you later.
I'm recused from this matter, so I will.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I left that out.
We are live.
Hello and welcome back. We are now, Thomas, do we need to make a motion to go out of executive session, or does that it just expired when we ended the meeting?
Well, I mean, why don't you make a motion to go back to regular meeting?
Kathy,
I make a motion to go back to the regular meeting.
is there a second?
Sorry about that.
That's an effective motion. We have a second. All those in favor of returning to the regular meeting?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now carried. Okay, very good. Okay, so thank you all. We are now back from our executive session with council, and we will immediately proceed with the first. We have actually one public hearing on for this evening on 80 Inlet. That's not fine. Reading the wrong piece, 80 Bluff, and we would like, I guess, we need to read in the 80 Firestone Bluff Crest Cottage. Lou, this is yours. So you'll do the honors kindly of reading in the public. Then I'll go to Thomas to make sure that we have jurisdiction. And then we'll go to Brian to give us a background. And before we do that, is the applicant on the line? It's Mr. Hayjack, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I'm sorry, Chair, could you repeat the name?
Isn't it Britain? I thought it was.
Britain? I apologize to
Joel
the
Halsey.
planner.
Joel.
Oh, Joel, right.
Joel just
Joel,
joined.
3 strikes, I'm out. Okay, very good. Mr. Olson here. Okay, so we have everybody that we need. If there are members of the public who are waiting to speak on the 80 Firestone Bluff Crest Cottages application, after we get through these preliminaries, then we will take your comments. So with that, Lou, please read in the public hearing notice.
Okay, public hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider said application. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, LTV channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until July 9th, 2021, or within 1 week of posting of the transcript on the town's website, whichever is later, for the purpose of receiving written comments. Written comments may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@ehamptonny.gov and by mail to 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937, and received on or before close of business on July 9, 2021. The public hearing will be held to consider the application of 80 Firestone Bluff Crest Cottages site plan special permit approval pursuant to Article 5 and 6 of Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code to demolish all existing improvements and reconstruct 4 separate resort units. Each unit is proposed to consist of 662 square foot unfinished basement, 600 square foot first floor, 578 square foot patio, 668 square foot roof deck, and hot tub. The application also proposed a 4 by 37 foot staircase from the bluff crest to the shoreline to the shoreline. The property contains 41,679 square feet, 0.957 acre, and is located on the west side of Firestone Road along the northeastern shoreline of Fort Pond, Montauk, and is situated in a resort zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton, and is identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel number 300-17-1-5, 80 Firestone Road. Subject application is classified as an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128, Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. A survey prepared by George Walbridge Surveyors, PC, dated revised April 14, 2021. A set of plans prepared by SLR Architects, PLLC, dated revised August 21st, 2020, including cover sheet A, basement plan unit 1A, A100.A, first floor plan unit 1A, in parentheses, A-101-A, close parentheses, roof plan unit 1A, parentheses, A-102.A, close parentheses, building elevations unit 1A, parentheses, A-200-A, close parentheses, building sections unit 1A, parentheses, A300.A, close parentheses, basement plan unit 1B, parentheses, A-100-.B, close parentheses, first floor plan unit 1B, parentheses, A-101.B, close parentheses, roof plan unit 1B, parentheses, A-102.B, close parentheses, building elevations unit 1B, parentheses, A-200.B, close parentheses, building sections unit 1B, parentheses, A-300.B, close parentheses, basement plan unit 1C, parentheses, A-100.C, close parentheses, first floor plan unit 1C, parentheses, A-101.C, close parentheses, roof plan unit 1C, parentheses, A-102.C, close parentheses, building elevations unit 1C, parentheses, A-200.C, close parentheses, building sections unit 1C, parentheses, A-300-.C, close parentheses, basement plan unit 1D, parentheses, A-100.D, close parentheses, first floor plan unit 1D, parentheses, A-101.D, close parentheses, roof plan unit 1D, parentheses, A-102.D, close parentheses, building elevations unit 1D, parentheses, A-200.D, close parentheses, building sections unit 1D parentheses, A-300.D, close parentheses, a set of plans prepared by PWCG dated February 26, 2020, including overall site plan, number 1, partial site plan and details, number 2, detail sheet, number 3, electrical detail sheet, 4-foot, number 4, and landscape and re-veg plan prepared by LaGuardia Design dated revised March 21, 2021 are available for inspection at the Planning Board Office, Suite 103, 300 Pantego Place, East Hampton, New York, dated May 5th, 2021.
Can you repeat that? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. A lot of work there. Thomas, how are we for jurisdiction on this matter?
I've reviewed a copy of the affidavit of service and posting, and the notice appears to be sufficient.
Very good, thank you. Brian, we have Brian Frank from the Planning Department, who will give us a brief overview of the application.
Good evening, board members. Brian Frank from the Planning Department. Sharing my screen, and you can see an aerial image of the current conditions on the property. As Member Cortese had mentioned, the property is on along the northeastern shoreline of Fort Pond Bay. It's improved with 4 existing cottages located in a resort zoning district, and the application has been to redevelop the property with 4 newer cottages of the size and accessory structures as described in the notice of public hearing. The property is immediately north of the Montauk, which is probably the best landmark to get your bearings in this area of Montauk. And I'm going to move, if nobody has an objection, from the from an aerial photo to the survey. This is the most recent survey of the property. As has been discussed throughout the review of the application, there's ingress at the northern portion of the property, egress in the southern portion of the property. There are 7 diagonal parking spaces. Actually, if you don't mind, I think I'm going to move to the one of the site plans where the colors make things that's not what I wanted either. Makes things a little bit more visible. As the board recalls, there have been some subtle changes to the improvements over the course of the review. A deck was eliminated along the northernmost unit to minimize construction activities in proximity to the steep slopes located along the northern property boundary. This application required a variance to allow the resort units to remain detached as opposed to being in a combined structure. From the Zoning Board of Appeals, it also needed a natural resources special permit for construction of the staircase down the bluff, which isn't this configuration, but those approvals were granted. ARB approval was granted as well. One of the conditions of the zoning board's approval was to require a revegetation plan seaward of the coastal erosion hazard line. You have a plan that's been accepted by or recommended to be accepted by the planning department to the zoning board as well as the planning board. And I think that's the most pertinent elements of the history of the application. So from here, I'll turn it over to the board members or the public. And if there's any resources that I can share on my screen or questions that I can answer, I'm happy to do so.
Very good. Thank you very much, Brian, for that comprehensive report on this application. Thomas, do we generally hear from counsel for the applicant at this time, or we just put it to the public directly?
I mean, I would see if anyone from the public's on the line, and if not, or once the public's spoken, let Joel have a moment.
Very good. All right, so we'll come back to the applicant to, I guess, respond to any comments. All right. So as Lou explained in the public hearing notice, during these Zoom meetings, we keep the public record open. So if for written comment, tonight, however, is the opportunity for spoken comment. So LTV, it's Michael, right?
Yes, it's Mike. There are no callers at this time, Chair.
Okay, very well. So if we have no callers, then we'll note that the public record stays open until July 9th. Did the applicant have anything they wanted to add at this time?
I have no comments. I just want to thank you all for taking your time through this whole process, and we look forward to a speedy conclusion here. Have a great night. Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so with that, we will close the public spoken comment portion of this public hearing, and we will move into our site plan reviews. As indicated earlier, is not going to be on tonight, so we will go directly to 85 Rod Highway. Marco is going to speak on behalf of the planning department. Who's the applicant's representative?
Denise Stern and Billy Hajek.
Okay, very good. I jumped done with you before, so on that last one. So I'm glad you're here for this. And Ms. Chung, how are you? See you again.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see everybody.
Okay, and Ed Krug, you're the board member on this application?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So we're all ready to go. Marco, take it away.
Good evening, board members. I'm just going to share screen right now. This application has been before you once for an initial valuation. This is the first follow-up memo that is for this application. So as a reminder, this is for an application to construct a 1,634 square foot storage/equipment barn with a sanitary system. It's to legalize an existing 292 square foot chicken coop and existing agricultural fencing on an agricultural easement of roughly 261,786 square feet in Wainscott by Wainscott Pond. If you remember, the lot is a little bit unique in that 70% of the land was to be covered by an agricultural easement, while the remaining 30% was to be developed with a residence with a scenic and conservation easement. So the planning board had requested comments from the town's agricultural committee, and that is attached to the memo. The committee states that the proposed barn is reasonable in scope and in scale for the proposed agricultural use. In regards to the proposed parking area, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit further here. This is the portion of the property which is the agricultural easement. The proposed barn is located here with previously there was proposed parking about I think it was slightly smaller than the size of this current existing dirt parking area and slightly further south. But in regards to that proposed parking area, the committee had recommended that the applicant maintain the existing parking area to avoid additional soil disturbance. The planning department notes that the proposed parking area is already cleared and utilized for the existing parking. So a concern was raised about whether or not an agricultural structure could be constructed if it is not part of a commercial business or enterprise. The committee encourages the planning board to request an opinion from the planning board attorney regarding this question. As for site plan, the applicant had submitted a revised site plan and survey that addresses the planning board's comments from the initial valuation. The applicant has proposed a sanitary system and 2 dry wells, and no other sanitary plans were submitted. There is a proposed water line, but it is unclear where the line is connecting to, and if it's serviced by public water or a well. The lighting specifications should also be depicted on the floor plans for additional clarity. So as for site plan review, floor plans / construction plans should be stamped and approved by a licensed professional. Floor plans / construction plans should include lighting details and specifications, and sanitary plans and details should be submitted. I've accidentally omitted one more requirement, and that would be a written narrative for the usage of the agricultural land. That should be included in the materials in the file. So in conclusion, the applicant should submit those additional details, and the planning board should discuss the comments from the agricultural committee.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Which committee?
Is there LTV? Is there somebody's trying to get in on this?
No, On
up
Zoom?
there? On Zoom?
No, there's nobody in the waiting room. Who are we waiting for?
No, I see a name has popped up at the top of the screen on my feed. All right. The applicant, yeah, Mr. Butterini. I see him.
You sure you're-
Their microphone is not muted. That's why. I think that's all.
Very good. All right, so the applicant, we'd like to hear from you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Billy Hayjack on behalf of the applicant, which is 85 Rod Highway Owner, LLC. Denise Shern is here, the applicant's attorney, and Jim Taylor and Nick Butterini from the architectural firm of Maylock Taylor Architects. We thank Marco for his prompt response to our last resubmission and his very thorough review. We don't have a whole lot to add. We're ready to resubmit the plans that were requested. We can certainly provide a written narrative as to how the structure will be used to support the existing agricultural activities that are being conducted on the property. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, but I'd assume or expect the board will be asking for an opinion from council on the suggestion made by the Agricultural Committee.
Very good.
Just real quick on that, I've read the Agricultural Advisory Committee's memo, and I think the question they ask is a good one, but I think as a threshold issue before the board starts determining whether a person who does not sell their agricultural product can construct an ag structure, we need to get some clarity on whether or not this particular property is engaged in a quote commercial business or enterprise, which isn't further defined in the definition. So I think that's where I discussed it with Marco, and the idea of a narrative came up. It's just to get a little bit more information before we go further to make sure that we're not answering a question that's not before the board.
All right, so you're saying that as an introduction to the board's discussion? No other.
Correct. Yeah. There's this request for an opinion. Specifically, I think the Ag Advisory Committee is looking at this from saying that a person is not engaged in a commercial farm business or enterprise. I don't know that we have enough information on this application to necessarily make that call at this point. So that's why a narrative or some more information on what they plan on doing is advisable.
So in other words, where they say the committee would therefore encourage the planning board to request an opinion from the board's attorney as to whether a person not engaged in commercial farm business or enterprise can construct an agricultural structure under the current town code. You're saying, am I correct, Thomas, that what you're saying is that to come up with the answer to that question as suggested by the Ag Committee, the applicant needs to give you a narrative?
Right, or just, it seems like the Agriculture Advisory Committee has already made the leap that the person is not engaged in a commercial farm business or enterprise. What I'm saying is I don't know that that information is presently in the file. I don't know that, I don't know that that's been established.
Okay.
I can opine if
Liaison to that committee, so I was at that meeting. I didn't understand the conversation during that meeting or their letter, frankly, saying that they don't think this is appropriate. It was just they didn't know whether if somebody wasn't selling something, whether we would ever approve that. They weren't talking against this so specifically, but I think the applicant in all of their presentations has said, they give the food away, they use it themselves. There wasn't an objection to that. I think the question is because the way our code is worded, whether that's ever acceptable.
All right, but one way or the other, we're going to need to get an opinion from the town attorney, and this is what the town attorney needs to, I'm going to leave it to the town attorney to figure out what they need And I think that the limitation, if you will, that the town attorney has expressed, that should inform our conversation. So Ed, with that, all that lengthy introduction, go right ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So thank you, everyone. Marco, great summary. Thanks to the applicant for the revisions that you've made and being willing to make the additional changes that are still needed. Details on the sanitary system, the dry wells, the lighting plan, getting the plan stamped, the sorts of housekeeping things that Marco mentioned. And as I think I said the last time that we looked at this, this is a very special place, a very special property. This is, special land and is among the most prime ag soils that there are, in East Hampton. And, in my experience, most ag easements, have some public benefit. And this is sort of largely, it seems, going to be sort of hidden from view, as lovely as the new barn is. And it does seem as though the intention is to really, grow food and grow flowers and so on for the use of the household. That's pretty much what we heard the last time that we looked at this. And, and that's fine. But, I do think this question that's been raised by the Ag Committee as to whether or not there needs to be some commercial aspect to this. It's an important question to get answered. It feels as though there's not a great deal of definition about what constitutes a commercial enterprise. I obviously think, I know one thing that came up in our last conversation about this was that there was some thought that the household would probably not use all the output of this farm and, would be giving it to food pantries and those sorts of things. So I think, a narrative that explains that, what the intentions are for kind of excess production and I think there are 3 or 4 workers that are meant to be working on this farm every day, which, to me, in some ways indicates that there's a commercial aspect to this. I think detailing, how this farm operates would be a really important thing to have from you guys to really understand this, so we can get to a resolution of this issue about, can we ever approve something that's not a barn of this type when it's not in a commercial application. That's it.
All right. Do any of the other members of the board have anything they wish to add to Ed's comments before we move on to the questions, which I suppose we can go forward with the first 2, and then there's the last one, which relates to the issue of the.
I have one comment, Sam.
Go ahead, Kathy, please.
I agree with mostly everything that Ed said, but I think one of the questions that, one of the challenges here for us is that the agricultural easement and the Ag Committee did emphasize this is for the commercial production of food. So while I think it's a generous and understandable interpretation of, workers being hired to work there as making it commercial, I don't think we'll rely on the attorneys for an interpretation, of course, but I think the idea is to keep it into commercial food production. So giving it away or whatever else, I'm not sure that qualifies. And I just feel that that's, and I'm eager to get the read from the town attorneys, but I think one of the issues we're facing here, as Ed rightly points out, this is a very beautiful area. It's got prime agricultural soils, and we're really trying to keep those soils in food production for the community. That was the goal of the ag easement. So I just wanted to make that known, and that's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Do any other one?
Yeah, I have a question. What happens if we come to the conclusion, or the attorneys come to the conclusion, that this is not within the definition of commercial agricultural enterprise? What are the what are the consequences of that in terms of our final say on what happens with this application?
Well, see, that's the thing is we'll have to do an opinion we'll basically have to do the last question here, do an opinion. I'm saying that I don't think we have the question that you would be getting an opinion for is, can you have structures in an agricultural easement that's not part of a commercial business or enterprise? I don't think we can do that opinion yet because we don't know if we don't have enough information to make a determination on whether this is a commercial business or enterprise, which is not further defined in the definition of agriculture. So we've got to make a threshold determination, or the board does. And my position is that we need more information from the applicant to make that threshold determination. If they submit a narrative or provide more information and it's determined that it is not a commercial business or enterprise, then the town attorney's office, should and probably will provide the opinion that's described here, which I don't know where we come out on that.
Can you make that determination based on case law? If there's nothing in the statute that defines commercial, you're going to have to rely on case law?
I don't know. I think I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to John Nicky and look into it further. I couldn't tell you right now, but I just know that what we have now that I've reviewed with Marco, I don't think the board can make a determination either way.
So can I just ask, how do we do it, differentiate between enterprise and commercial business?
Well, it can be either one. So
an enterprise doesn't necessarily mean that they're selling their vegetables. They're just having, I'm not sure if I understand the difference.
Yeah. I'll have to look into it further, but I think a necessary first step is to get more information from the applicant.
Yeah, narrative. Yeah.
It might be, Sharon, you may have just, balanced what Ed was saying with what Kathy was saying, that maybe the existence of employees makes it an enterprise, but not commercial. But I don't want to speculate, but I think Thomas is right. We need a narrative.
So what I'm asking is, what if we come to the conclusion after we get the narrative, the attorneys review it, and the conclusion is that this is not a commercial enterprise in any sense of the imagination? What are the consequences of that? Is that they can't build this barn and that's it? There's no other ramification to that decision?
Well, then the attorney's office, as stated here, would need to come up with an opinion on whether an agricultural structure could be constructed if it's not part of a commercial business or enterprise. I don't know where that would come down. I don't know.
But it wouldn't affect the agricultural easement that's already been.
No, there's an agricultural easement that's filed.
That's already that horse has left the barn. Excuse the pun.
Well, that's the barn door through which the horse must go.
Right. So all we're talking about here, we're not going back to when this house was built, that this was deemed to be an agricultural easement. This is not in our purview whatsoever. All we're talking about is, does this barn get built because there's a commercial enterprise on this land, or it doesn't get built because this is somebody's nice backyard that they can grow vegetables in?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Once we have the narrative, I think we're getting out ahead of ourselves a little bit. I think we need to get the narrative from the applicant to see what their intentions are. And then we'll get a read from the attorneys, and then we'll ask ourselves that question once we have more information.
Okay. So let's go, unless anyone has any further comment.
Well, I do. I think that,
I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I think that Lou is asking a good question, actually, because I was at that meeting, and I don't want to speak for the Agriculture Advisory Committee beyond the letter, but the letter, the last paragraph, is very supportive. They were not sure whether this could be called agriculture because of the way that the code describes it. So, you know, I think that Lou is actually asking the right question. I think the Ag Advisory Committee thought it was okay for them to do what they were doing as long as it was legal by the code. And so I support the narrative wholeheartedly, but I do think we have to get at the core of the question, which is if they're not selling vegetables, does that mean they, or selling, you know, agricultural commodities, can they never build this? You know, the code talks about agriculture in a lot of different ways. We're focusing on the definition of agriculture, but as Thomas points out, you know, what a commercial enterprise or business is not itself defined. And if you read agriculture as used throughout the rest of the code, even in calling something an agricultural easement, it clearly is not tied to commercial, you know, activity. So I do think eventually we have to answer the question, regardless of this application, as to whether, you know, you need to sell things for it to be agriculture.
Do you think we're prepared to do that now?
I'm not saying we're prepared to do that now, but I never like to just say, you know, oh, we need more information, because I do think we have to be clear about what kind. So,
But don't you think the narrative is, yeah, well, don't you think the narrative will help?
Wholeheartedly support the narrative, but I think that they've described what they want to do, which is grow for themselves, give some stuff away, share with their neighbors. And I think that the Ag Advisory Committee thought that that was okay and the structure was appropriate. Their concern was if that technically isn't legal. So if their narrative remains the same as it's been throughout these deliberations, I frankly think we do know the question. It's just we don't have the answer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah. I mean, the narrative has never been committed to paper, as I understand.
I support that process, but the reason I'm talking still about it is because I think that, you know, we've heard that, and it's worth moving the process along. If they just write the same thing they've told us already, and we say yes, that's fine, or no, it's not, you know, I think we already have that information.
I think that, you know, the town attorney knows that it has to make a determination, and that's a determination that has to stand up legally. And if the town attorney says that in order to make that determination, they need a narrative, then I think that's something that we need to support, because we want the town attorney to give us the most viable decision that they can. So with that, there's two questions, and then we'll get to that narrative question. Should the applicant provide revised floor plans that are approved by a licensed professional and contain lighting specifications?
Yes.
I don't think, does anyone object to that? Hearing none. We'll add that to the letter. Should the applicant provide additional sanitary details for the proposed sanitary system? And again, are there any objections? Hearing none, we'll add that to the letter. And then the question of the moment, should the planning board obtain an opinion from the town attorney regarding the agricultural committee's concern about constructing structures and agricultural easements not part of a commercial business or an enterprise? Do we all agree on that?
We all agree.
Yeah, but we didn't ask specifically for a narrative as part of these questions, right?
Yeah, so
that's Thomas's answer.
No, my recommendation for this question is the answer is no, not at this time, because we need more information.
So then we need to rewrite this question. Perhaps. Thomas?
Right. I mean, it's just there. We haven't established.
I will rewrite it on the fly, and I'll ask this way: should the planning board withhold obtaining an opinion from the town attorney regarding the agricultural committee's concern about constructing structures in agricultural easements not part of a commercial business or enterprise until such time as the town attorney is provided with a narrative from the applicant? Can we get yeses on that?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Anyone disagree with that on the board?
Well, I remain to just think that we're asking if something could be agriculture if they are not selling things. So I support the narrative, but it's that Thomas is that we're not going to decide this until Thomas gets that narrative in. That's the idea of this question.
Well, we don't. know that there's a question to decide. If it's a commercial business,
Yeah.
then the
We're
question is moot. Like,
We're withholding that,
like,
that decision until you're able to render an opinion based on the narrative that we are, that you're saying you need.
I mean, I think it's really the board that's going to determine, with probably advice from council as to whether it's a commercial business or enterprise, but that's, the narrative or just more information on what this property is used for is I think, essential to make that determination.
Let me put it this way. If they, what this question is saying is that if the applicant doesn't, and I think it's probably totally because I imagine the applicant's going to give the narrative, but if the applicant doesn't give the narrative, then the town attorney can't give us the opinion, and we can't vote. Then we can't vote in favor. So. It takes 3 steps to get there, but that's where we are.
That's fine. There is a broader issue here, and I know we don't like to stray from the topic of a particular application, but I know there was conversations about the same thing with other applications. So eventually, we do have to answer whether selling produce or selling something that has to happen to be agriculture, because the Agriculture Advisory Committee, I think, felt comfortable with this as agriculture, was only worried about the particular wording. So we can get an opinion or a narrative and get an opinion. It's going to come up again unless we determine at some point whether you have to sell stuff to be agriculture.
Well, as with all things,
right, but Ian, we can't answer that question in the context of this application if it doesn't apply to this application.
Fair enough. I'll take it.
As with all things that we do and we decide, there's precedential value. And if we make the wrong, that's why we have to be careful when we investigate and make these decisions, because 3 applications down the road, a bad decision on this application could.
I'll continue offline, but I think we want to be broad enough so that we don't keep repeating the problem. That's all.
Okay, Joni, you got all that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, applicant, do you have anything else you want to add, Ms. Hajic?
No, I have nothing else to add. We will certainly provide you with. We've given you a layout of the barn, how it will be used. Our submission included, how many workers arrive. We had their gardener, farmer at the first meeting. We explained what we grow and how it's used. So we're happy to put all that in a letter and submit it to you as a narrative. So you can opine on it. Okay.
We appreciate that. I know it took a serpentine path to get to the point where you stated that, but
okay.
Okay.
I appreciate everyone's time.
Okay.
Thanks, Billy.
Thank you, Billy.
Okay. Next matter on our site plan review is Becky Bakash, Residence Unit 73. Will, you're the planning department on this, and Lou, you're the. If you have any voice left after that, you're the board member, and who's the applicant on this?
I'm here, Lori Wiltshire.
Oh, Lori, it's yours. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, very good. So I guess Will take the ball if you would.
Thanks. Okay. This is an application that was reviewed last in March. It is to construct a new outdoor shower and staircase of roughly 49 square feet and an AC unit enclosure of roughly 32 square feet. At Bacchus is Bicky Residence Unit 73, a 6.8 acre parcel located on the south side of Montauk Highway in the Peak in an RS resort zoning district. The location, as you can see on the shared screen, this is sort of, I'll zoom out for a second so you can get a better look at the overall site. But the specific portion of the site that is relevant here is the one zoomed in here. You can see the proposed AC enclosure, the proposed shower, and the proposed stairs. The survey was recently submitted and has met with the planning department's request to illustrate the wetland setback to the proposed renovation, as well as the location of the dry well and the number of parking spaces on site. The proposed renovation will neither impact nor alter the current parking on site. It was requested in the previous evaluation that information pertaining to generated noise from the proposal should be submitted. It has been confirmed that on the newly submitted plans, the AC units are existing. And it's been indicated that the unit's enclosure doors will serve to mitigate potential noise, but no specifics were given as to how this will function. And the planning department recommends that more information be submitted to properly address those concerns. It was also requested that on the prior evaluation that information pertaining to wastewater containment and depth to groundwater should be submitted. Included with the follow-up information was information provided by PW Grosser Consulting that the outdoor shower will have an NDS flow well, dry well installed beneath the shower enclosure. It'll have a depth height of 2.40 feet and be 2.0 feet below grade. And product details regarding the dry well were included that state that it can hold up to 50 gallons of stormwater. Additionally, PW Grosser Consulting also submitted a letter of explanation indicating that the groundwater elevation on the north side of the hotel units on the east property line is approximately 9 feet below grade. It was also requested in the prior evaluation that the existing parking spaces number be identified in order to establish the existing parking for future site plan applications. In addition to that, it is now requested that the parking calculations be added to the site plan, establishing the existing parking as per the most recent certificate of occupancy, the number of parking spaces required for the residential units and the on-site cottages, according to Chapter 255 of the Town Code. The Planning Board has agreed that in the event that all its concerns regarding parking calculations, noise, wastewater containment, and depth to groundwater are addressed, then the public hearing for the proposal will be waived. The natural resources special permit has already been submitted, and thusly, once the public hearing is waived, the project will be approved. So in conclusion, if the requested calculations are added to the survey and further information is provided regarding noise mitigation, the public hearing will be waived and the project will be approved.
Very good. Thank you for that report. Ms. Wiltshire, it's yours.
Yes, hi. So I've already responded, and honestly, I'm not being critical of Will. He's new, and welcome, Will. I think there was a little bit lost in translation between the last reviewer and this reviewer, in that everything that is being requested now has already been submitted. We have provided what you asked for in the March 20th memo and at the April 28th meeting to put the number of parking spaces on the survey. My client, as one of 57 unit owners and 3 cottages and a house of 3 stories, my client paid to have that information added to this survey when in fact there are absolutely no parking requirements associated with what we are applying for. This is a very minor site plan. It involves a staircase, an outdoor shower with proper drainage, and enclosing existing air conditioning units. I will say that the existing air conditioning units are the same air conditioning units on every unit of this building, but we are enclosing them. So our noise potential is going to be diminished compared to the other units. What I will also say is that our neighbor, other than our parents above our unit, our neighbor is open space. So providing some sort of fancy noise calculations about air conditioning units is moot because we cannot do that with all the other air conditioning units that are on this site. The third thing is that PW Grosser provided the groundwater depth on the east side of this property, which is 9 feet below the surface. We provided the specs on the dry well, which is not for wastewater and it's not for stormwater. It's for an outdoor shower. That dry well is 2.4 feet deep. It is directly below the shower, and the depth to groundwater is 6.7 feet, which meets our code of 2 feet separation of all structures to groundwater. So I do not believe there's anything that we need to submit again, as it's all in your record. This is a very minor site plan. There's no need for a hearing. There are no affected neighbors at all, except the parents upstairs who are, the stairs are joining those 2 units so that they can get back and forth between each other. And I think this should be deemed complete tonight. I think that the hearing should be waived, as you already agreed to, and that it should be approved in the next meeting.
Okay, I guess then we should move on to the committee. Ian, this is your application.
I think this one's mine.
Is it? Oh, I apologize, Lou. You're right. I jumped. My eye jumped down.
That's okay.
All right, it is yours.
Yeah, I took a walk around again on this property, and I was just wanted to review in my own head these three issues: the parking, the groundwater, and the noise. The parking, just from a common sense point of view, and I'm not sure, maybe Will is following the letter of the law. And if that's what the code says, then, that's a technical thing that he needs to work out with the applicant. But from a common sense point of view, I don't see how this particular renovation will impact parking in any way. It won't. It just won't. The groundwater issue, I think Gloria just explained it. There's plenty of groundwater separation from that dry well, so I don't think that's an issue. As far as the noise is concerned, Randy, the last time we were reviewing this, he mentioned, he was concerned that even though there aren't any residences or other people living nearby, there is that park area, and he was concerned that the park area would be sort of contaminated with this noise. But I took a good look around there today, went up to the top of the unit, the bottom. I walked around the park area. You can't really walk around that park area, but I went to the nearest driveway, and there's at least an acre of fairly dense vegetated land separating the first beach walk for people that want to, or a trail that goes onto the beach, and this unit. So there's no way that the noise from that air conditioner is going to disturb anyone enjoying that parkland. So as far as I'm concerned, again, I'm not voicing my opinion on the technical requirements regarding the parking, but I don't think there's a noise issue. I don't think there's a groundwater issue. And the parking, as I said, I leave that to Will and the planning department to see if there's any technical requirements there. But I personally don't think there's anything that needs to be done regarding parking. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
All right. Do any other board members have anything they want to add on this? Kathy, I see your hand.
Yeah. I think that the main issues here are not, are that these things be depicted on the plan as a point of reference for any applications going forward, that this is really about, having a complete file, and that having the depth to groundwater depicted on the plan. And I'm not sure from what I've heard, and I can't remember what Will said, if it is in fact depicted on the plan, then I think we can move ahead. But, and the parking spaces and all the rest, that's just landmarking this in this moment in time. So when another application comes in, we know what was, we have a complete assessment of what the existing conditions are. And, it's been one of the struggles, I think, for all of us, both in the planning department and on the planning board, that from time to time, the surveys do not accurately reflect the existing conditions for one reason or another. So I don't think, Lou, it's really, and Lori, I don't think anybody's trying to throw a wrench in the works here. It's really just to make a complete record so that, going forward, there's an accurate assessment of the existing conditions. And we did talk a little bit about making some kind of, enclosure for the air conditioning units. And I trust Lou's judgment if he thinks that that's quiet enough, because I know there's some kind of a surround for it. But I think when we last discussed this, we did talk about some kind of, sound absorbing material that might could be put on the inside of the unit to just further lower those audible decibels from the AC unit. But if Lou feels that it's adequate, then I trust his judgment. I'm willing to go with that. But the other things that were requested to be depicted on the plan, I think are just it's mainly a bookkeeping issue. And I think once those things are submitted, we can go forward. That's it for me.
Thanks. Any other board members have anything they want to add on this?
I'd like you to take a consensus, a roll consensus, because, like I said before, every unit has an air conditioning unit or two. We're enclosing ours. That is mitigation. Those are not enclosed, the other ones. They also abut the same open space. And if Lou thinks it's sufficient, I don't see why we have to be adding more information to the survey. The same with the depth of groundwater. It's in your file. And the number of existing parking spaces are on the map.
What I'd like to do is, it's not one of the questions that's on our the consensus questions, but I think that it might be appropriate to add a question as to whether the application is complete.
Thank you.
Thomas, can I do that? Can I add that as a question?
Yeah, I mean, you do that. You're the chair. You can ask what questions you think we need.
Well, that was the answer. Okay. All right. So the first question is, should the planning board continue to request parking calculations be added to the survey? Anyone think that it should be added to the survey?
Well, what is the, can I ask if, because Kathy made a good point, or she raised a good point. If that is something that is required on every site plan, on every survey that comes in front of us for a site plan review, then I think it should be added. But
no, we can't deem it complete without it, right?
If that's the case, I don't know. I'm asking. I need guidance here from the planning department.
Yeah. Can I clarify?
Please.
What we were asking for, Lori's right. The survey does illustrate the actual parking spaces. What we wanted to see was a breakdown of the number of units, what the parking requirement would be under the code, and then compare that with what's existing, so that, just as Kathy put it, we have a benchmark moving forward. That being
But that's
said,
not what was asked for last time. And we gave you what you asked for last time. And my client paid Wallbridge to put that on the survey. And now you're asking them to make another survey revision for 57 units. It's not fair.
That being said, was what I was going to end with. There was a application at this site a couple of years ago for renovations to a lobby. That was not requested at that time. It wasn't required of the applicants. As far as it being a requirement for a site plan, it is information that's listed in the basic information for a site plan, but the board has the authority to require or waive site plan elements. Being fair, Lori's right, this is one unit of a large facility, and they're not affecting the parking requirement with the changes that they're proposing. We brought this up as wanting it to be something for future reference. So with that, I'll leave it to the board to decide whether or not they feel it's necessary.
So the answer is we can still deal with the question of whether the application is complete, and if the board determines that it's complete, then we will have, by implication, passed on the requirement for parking calculations to be added to the survey.
Correct.
So, Thomas, let me ask you a question. Should I just jump ahead to do we deem it complete?
I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I think probably. Because the next question for everybody's information is, should the planning board request more information regarding the indicated mitigation for generated noise from the AC units? So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to add as a question and ask the board to pass on, do we deem this application complete? Let's see where we go with that. Does anyone disagree? Go ahead.
No, I deem it complete, given what Eric described, since it is, the planning department is being flexible with regard to including that parking calculation. And given the circumstances of this particular application, I I personally don't think it's necessary, so I deem the application complete.
Just go around the table real quick. I'll start with Ed. Ed, complete?
Yes, complete.
Who we got you? Ian?
I agree.
Okay, Kathy? You're muted, Kathy.
Yeah, as a practical matter, I think it's complete. I'm sorry, we won't have these. I like to have everything contained in one spot.
But you're voting complete, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sharon?
Yes, complete.
And I'll add to that. So the application is deemed complete. The other two issues
And
are.
just so you know, that also means it's ready for approval.
Yeah.
The application, the natural resources special permit application is going to be handled administratively, meaning that the public hearing won't be held for that, and that's being processed. But you can approve this application with a condition that the applicants obtain the NRSP.
And the ARB's already approved it as well.
To illuminate just a little more on why we wouldn't have a public hearing as you, why is the NRSP being done administratively?
Because it's minor enough in scale and it's far enough away from the wetlands. It's just, it's something that it's the discretion of the zoning board of appeals if they want to handle an NRSP administratively. It's
Right.
usually brought to them by the planning department and recommended to have that be done, and we have done that. It's a very minor. I mean, it is a minor site plan. It qualifies as
Right.
that.
So in other words, the issue of public hearing isn't even in our purview. We just simply deem it complete, and it moves on to a different body that is going to or not have a public hearing, and whatever they do, they do. Right?
We waived the public hearing earlier.
Oh, we did. That's right. You're right.
We already waived the public hearing from our perspective, and then it's up to the ZBA whether, it's like they're saying it's handled administratively, the NRSP, then they don't need a public hearing for that either.
Okay, so
They just waived the public hearing as well by deeming it an administrative application.
Right, right.
So
The ARB's already approved it, so you can approve this with the condition that we get the NRSP, which we will.
Correct.
And Thomas, do I need to go around the table again on that, or I think we're good with that?
I think we're fine. I think you've already gone around and gotten the votes.
So, okay, all right, very good. You have a completed application.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. All right, last item on site plan review is the Beckman Commercial Building. Eric, that's going to be you. And is the applicant on the line?
Yep, this is Tara Burke. I'm here for Beckman Commercial.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ian, you're the board member on this one. So Eric, take it away.
Okay, hopefully you can see my screen right now. This is the site plan that was approved in 2018. It's for a roughly 1,800 square foot, 2-story building with a vet's office on the first floor and a regular office on the second floor. You can see on this site plan, the sidewalks on this property were approved. Well, I should say were approved on the property, not within the right of way. This is at the end of a block that the board has numerous active applications on. And hopefully you can see this illustration here. So
what a great idea having those names there. Wow.
Yeah. I thought of that. That was all my idea.
Yeah.
No, Sam's joking because he asked for that as a visual aid. So you can see Beckman is on the end here on the eastern, the southern side of South Euclid and the eastern end of that block. 92 South Euclid is an active application. Kazura, as you can see by the presence of that building, was built recently. Then to the north, you have Pete's Garden Center across the street and South Essex Corner. Now the illustration here, the different colors, the blue are applications or areas where you have either approved or currently have a site plan, that would be South Essex Corner, where the sidewalks are proposed on the actual physical property and not within the right of way. The yellow illustrates where, well, with Zura, where it was built in the right of way, and then Pete's Garden Center and 92 South Euclid, where they're proposing the sidewalk in the right of way. You can do either design, the sidewalk in the right of way. You can still fit head-in spaces on both sides of the road. It meets the required, well, the dimensional requirements. I will show you. So Beckman is in for an extension of time request at this point. However, as I mentioned, they were approved with the sidewalks on the property. The situation on this block has changed since it was approved in 2018, as evidenced by the fact that you have 3 active applications. So it's a different situation here. The surrounding area has changed, and you should consider that before you just grant an extension of time. And really, I think this is the time for the board to have the larger discussion of what the sidewalks in this area of Montauk should look like, because we certainly want them to line up. You'll see in the memo that I wrote, our conclusion is to recommend that you require a modification of Beckman and have the sidewalk put in the right of way, and that be the design moving forward for basically all of downtown Montauk. What I did, and I attached it to the memo that you have, is I color coded. This is all of the sidewalks in downtown Montauk right now, both existing and proposed. Anywhere where you see blue is where the sidewalks are within the right of way. Where you see red, and I probably should have used a different color, it doesn't stand out too great, but red is where they're on the subject property. So you can see there's really only 2 areas. There's an area up in the northern end of town near the ball fields, and then there's 1 strip of stores on the southeast side, well, just southeast of the plaza. But everywhere else, these spaces are, or excuse me, the sidewalks are situated within the right of way. So going back to, I suppose, that illustration of the active applications, you can see 92 South Euclid, which is still incomplete in front of you, and it touches the Beckman property. They're proposing it within the right of way. We feel that that's the most appropriate aesthetic and design to continue on Beckman. That being said, then, if you don't agree with that, you do have an extension of time resolution on for tonight. You could grant the extension of time, but we are basically recommending that that there be a modification of the application and the plans be changed. I will say, and I'm sure the applicant's agent will say this, you know, they didn't do anything wrong here. They followed the process and were approved accordingly. So I do regret that we're asking them to get new plans and change them, but we do have a situation where, you know, at least this side of South Euclid was pretty much undeveloped when the Beckman application came in. And, you know, as I said already, you now have 3 active applications here, and there is a new building, Home Sweet Home, Home Team 668. Was just recently built also on the other side of the road. So that's our recommendation to you. But I think that this is the situation of the sidewalks. I mean, at least on this block, is something that the board has discussed numerous times on other applications. And I think it's time for the board to have somewhat of a big picture discussion about what this block is going to look like. But of course, in the context of the Beckman extension of time request. So at that, I'll leave it to the applicant's agent and the board.
Can I just say something before we move on to the applicant? Eric, were you present when we reviewed the South Essex Corner property?
South Essex Corner? That's an active one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's an active one, and they were before us. I forget.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's had a couple of reviews.
Now, as I recall, you mentioned that if we put the sidewalks on the right of way for Beckman and South Essex Corner, you said that still leaves enough room for with head-in parking, it still leaves enough room for the road.
That's correct. In
Now-
fact, I'm sorry, yeah, continue.
As I recall, when we were reviewing the South Essex corner, as part of that application, there was a consulting engineer report that I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I think they said that it still remains to be seen whether or not with the head-in parking, if there'll be enough space for the road, because it's a two-way street. And I think they said you need 12 feet on each side. And they were questioning whether or not that could be accomplished. In either case, I think, and I get your point about, comparing it to the rest of town where all the sidewalks are in the right of way. So for the sake of uniformity, it makes sense. But with regard to this particular street, I raised this objection the last time with South Essex Corner. I think it's very, very narrow. And if you put the sidewalks in the right of way, it makes it even more narrow. The only, I raised the suggestion the last time that if we're going to do that, then this street should become a one-way street, which is a whole nother, rabbit's hole that we've got to go down to get that done. But I'm just concerned that with the sidewalks on the right of way and having a two-way street, it's going to be a very, very dangerous road, especially when cars are turning down this road from Essex Street. So I just don't want to, rubber stamp this idea of putting, asking that the sidewalk be put in the right of way without consideration to how much room we need for the road.
Well, I actually have a diagram here that I can show you. It's a simple matter of math. All of the right-of-ways in the downtown Montauk grid are either 70 feet in width or 100 feet in width. The only ones that are 100 feet in width are Edgemere, Montauk Highway, and the entirety of the plaza. This road is 70 feet in width, so you can fit those spaces there. But you did bring something up that I forgot to say originally, but it is worth considering that Beckman and South Essex are, well, it's in the name of South Essex. They're on the corners here. Where people would be turning off of Essex or off of Euclid. So you may want to think about that and the fact that putting the sidewalks on the actual property does give you more width. It does keep the lanes wider, or at least they're able to be wider. But let me just show you what I'm talking about with, I got to adjust the picture.
After you finish this, actually, you know what, Eric, if you don't mind, I think it's probably better to, before we get any deeper into it, I want to give the applicant,
sure,
an opportunity to speak now. Lou raised an important question, and it did challenge the premise of what you're suggesting. So I didn't mind going into it, but before you go again on it, I would like the applicant to have an opportunity to speak. So, Ms. Burke, you're on. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think everything Eric is saying makes sense. Having been in the planning department for 9 years and doing a tremendous amount of work in downtown Montauk, I fully agree with what he's saying and, understand where he's coming from. There was even a downtown Montauk study in the 80s that looked at the parking in all of Montauk. And this neighborhood has been known as one of the few neighborhoods where there's a significant amount of development potential to happen all at the same time, and lo and behold, it's happening. And our application came in 2018, which was before 92 South Euclid came in, and certainly before Pete's Garden Shed and South Essex. And I understand that, ours hasn't been built yet. So the extension of time request, this is the time to have that discussion as to whether or not it makes sense. So that being said, I guess there's a couple of points that I want to touch upon. The first being, we are more than happy to move the sidewalk to the right of way. I actually think that it's better for us from a liability standpoint. It is a public sidewalk. The public will be crossing it. They will be on it on a regular basis. And I think having that sidewalk in the road right of way is certainly in our best interest rather than having it on our property. So that's the first thing. And I know we're only talking about South Essex, but I think that same point, or rather South Euclid, I think that same point exists for South Essex as well, because it is a corner lot. So we have no problem pulling it into the road right away in both scenarios. As far as the width of the road goes, so that's kind of like the elephant in the room, right? If this is even possible. I actually met with the town's consulting engineer coincidentally last week for the application across the street. I also represent Pete's Garden Shed, and the town board had asked him to go over there because of a drainage issue coming from South Essex. So we met on site and we had this very conversation about the parking on Pete's Garden Shed is proposed currently in the road right of way. The parking on South Essex Corner is proposed currently on the property. And he seemed to believe at that meeting that there was ample room to pull the parking for South Essex Corner into the road right of way and keep Pete's Garden Shed there, with the understanding that 92 South Euclid is in the road right of way. So, I mean, I guess all I have to say is we're happy to do that modification. But, you know, my clients are local and every dollar matters. So before we submit that modification fee, I would just like to, and before they have me, you know, put the time and energy into putting the submission together, I would just request that we see if it's even possible. And, you know, whether that be through Eric or the town's consulting engineer, whomever is more appropriate. And if it is possible, then we go ahead and we'll submit all that paperwork and get everything lined up so we can move forward. So that's really all I have to say so far.
All right, thanks very much. Ian?
Yeah,
so go right ahead. You've got a lot of balls in the air right now.
You tried to give me Lou's application, so he stole mine here. But I agree with what Lou said. You know, I was concerned about the South Essex Corner as well. And I think if you get into that math, you have 4-foot sidewalks, that's 8 feet, counting both sides, 24 feet bare minimum for lanes. And then, you know, that leaves only 19 feet per parking space with bumpers right on the sidewalk in a very tight space. You know, a lot of fishermen, a lot of people drive longer trucks. I don't think that's going to work practically, even if the math technically works. In fact, I think our code even allows for parking spaces to be 20 feet long in some cases. Planning department can correct me if I'm wrong, which means that we're cutting it awfully close. And Eric, if my math is off, let me know. But we would have parking spaces right on the sidewalk then, no?
No, that's correct. And hopefully you can see the diagram that I have on my screen. And in fact, Tara was referencing this downtown Montauk study from the 80s. So the math works, but you're right. And you can even see it in that diagram. It's right up to the 4-foot wide walkway.
Yeah, I mean, we've required bollards in a lot of instances. I just think this is, I don't think it's frankly good planning, even though it would be great to have straight sidewalks. And I wish we had gotten out ahead of this problem. I will say that since we have the opportunity, you know, they're here before an extension of time, and Eric brings up lots of good points about how the situation has changed, and it's worthwhile discussion here. We should make sure that this applicant ties the sidewalk in or whatever mechanism we need to make that flow between the existing, the approved site plan next door and this one, that we take care of that problem so that the sidewalk is at least continuous. But you know, I'm with Lou. I think the planning board decided almost unanimously, or certainly a majority, that across the street, we were going to accept it on the property. I think it's appropriate here as well. And frankly, would worry about generally with only a 70-foot right of way, ever having head-in parking on both sides now that we know this issue.
Okay.
So if I might not have been clear about how I think we should handle this application, I think that Tara brought up a good point. Maybe perhaps we wait, we don't grant this extension of time. We figure out exactly what we need to do so that, you know, we either say, we'll give you an extension of time, we support this as proposed. My concern, to be clear, is just to make sure that we address the issue of the two sidewalks at least being continuous while we have the opportunity.
Let me just turn back to the applicant. What's your preference so that we're all clear on?
Well, I guess I'm sort of, you mean preference as far as on the property or in the road right of way?
Well, actually, I was thinking more in terms of our work.
Oh, okay.
Application and the extension. Versus-
Well, I mean, obviously we'd like the path of least resistance. So if we can just get an extension of time, great. But if there's a larger issue that needs to be addressed, we certainly don't want to create a poor planning situation. I totally agree that they need to be tied together somehow. But I guess it's more, my question's more administrative. So if we have to, let's say we have to do a modification, don't we need the extension of time first anyway, so that the application is still valid when we modify it?
That's precisely why I asked the question. And I'm going to toss it over to Thomas to make sure that I don't give an off-the-cuff answer. Thomas?
Can I just add one thing before we move on to?
Well, let me just get the question framed, and then we can have a little more discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I believe they have more. Like, I believe they have more time to get an extension, right? Like, or are we already at the?
We're already.
Yeah, we're already there. Okay.
Like, I know with the zoning board, you have to bring your application up to date before you can extend it.
Here, I'm sure that that's
Maybe, does Jody know? Does Jody know the answer?
It has to be extended before you can modify it.
Okay.
There we go.
So could we potentially get the extension conditioned on the resolution of this issue?
That works for me.
What I don't want is I don't want to give you the extension at your prejudice. I don't want you to be prejudiced.
Sam, that's exactly the problem. If we extend it tonight without a resolution here as to how we're going to solve this problem,
right,
they don't ever have to solve it. You know, we extend things all the time that are overdue. I fully intend to extend it. I think that is required for a modification, but I think it's unwise for us to do that without having a plan in place. And clearly it can't be so time sensitive to the applicant that we're at this point. And if we don't do it tonight, all is lost. So I think we should just give this a little bit of time to figure out with the planning department, Thomas and the applicant, how we want to address the issue and have a plan when we extend it for what the modification will be and some mechanism to make sure it's not only at the applicant's discretion.
So you're saying a conditional extension?
No, I'm saying we don't extend, we don't vote on it. I'm not against the extension, but I mean, if we don't vote on it tonight, we could vote on it next time, no?
Well, that's what
I want. Is you could hold the building permit. This is in order to get their building permit. You can just not issue the building permit, but keep their application, under approval with the extension.
But if we extend it, there's nothing that says, I mean, tonight, I think it's gonna be hard for us to come up with a way to make sure our concern is addressed.
You can add a letter to the file. To the file.
We can't extend it conditionally. I mean, I think Tara offered to do that, conditioned on the resolution of this issue. Did I misunderstand that?
No, I did offer to do that. And to Jody's point, when we go for a building permit, the building department will get in touch with the planning board and say, hey, can we issue the building permit for this? And then that's Jody's opportunity to say, not yet, we're still working out this issue, or yes, go ahead, everything's good to go. So there's that added layer of protection for the board.
What's the downside of waiting a week to do this?
That I have to come back and they have to pay me to come here again. And I'd love for that not to happen, since we might have to modify, which is, going to be expenses that they didn't expect to begin with.
Well, you see, my concern is the length of time to do the modification. That's I mean, you're not going to do that in a week, are you?
Well, no, and maybe there's a mechanism we can come up with that doesn't require that. I don't know what it would be, but it seems like, giving this a little bit of time.
But Ian, what's your fear in extending it? I guess that's not what I'm understanding.
What's that?
What's your fear in extending it? Because if you extend it conditioned on the resolution and Jody.
Because I think if we extend it tonight, no matter what Jody says when the building department contacts her, legally you can build it as is, and I don't think it works. And I think
Not
it's,
even conditioned?
well,
Are we,
if Thomas comes up with that condition tonight,
we gotta put it into the hands of council.
You can't build it as is without a building permit.
I know, but we can't forever hold up a building permit based on this conversation without some teeth to it. So if we come up with that condition tonight, great. I'm, skeptical that we can.
Thomas? And then I want to come back to Lou, because I know Lou wanted to
Yeah.
try and do something. But we need some guidance here.
I mean, I don't know. I think you can amend. I gotta think about it, but I think you can amend the extension of time resolution to state that building permits will not issue until letter and file resolving outstanding sidewalk issue. I don't know.
And if the applicant agrees to that, then it's agreed to, and we don't have to worry about anybody saying that they don't, they're not on board with that.
I mean, Jody, does that work?
I see you shaking your head, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so do we need to amend the language? We're not up to the modification yet. We have a few minutes to put pen to paper.
Okay, so the extension of time resolution would be amended to add a paragraph 5 that says building permits will not issue until there's a letter in the file from the planning board stating that the sidewalk in the right-of-way versus on property issue is resolved.
And is that acceptable to Tara? Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just request that the resolution of the issue could happen, sooner than later too.
I think this is a very pragmatic and graceful way to address all the issues that have been raised. So in a moment, we'll get to the extension application. Before we move on to out of the site plan reviews and into the regular meeting, Lou, you had something you wanted to add?
No, I just want to emphasize what I was saying before. I looked up that consulting engineer report on the South Essex Street application. And he's talking about in this paragraph about whether to move the sidewalks into the right of way. And he says in this paragraph, at the end of the paragraph, he says, there appears to be adequate space within the South Essex Street right of way for a sidewalk. However, the space available within the South Euclid Avenue right of way is questionable. So even the consulting engineer is stating here that he's wondering whether or not there's enough room if you put the sidewalk in the right of way for a two-way street on South Euclid Avenue. I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah, well, we should be thankful to the planning department for trying to guide us into a comprehensive addressing English of this situation. I don't think a week has gone by, or maybe 2 weeks have gone by, that we haven't had something on this corner before this board. So it is something that we're going to need to deal with. I appreciate that the applicant is going to be cooperative in that endeavor, and we will, when we get to the resolutions in a moment, by then hopefully Thomas will have written a crackerjack 5th paragraph that we will read into it, and we'll then have everybody's approval.
But the resolution's on tonight, Sam, which is my concern.
Well, he's adding, yeah.
He's revising it now.
Okay. Language to it to make it palatable and to everybody, and meet our needs. And from the point of view of the committee, the applicant is saying that they find it acceptable, that additional condition. So I think we can And it gives us the opportunity to address the issues that the planning department, I think correctly, thinks we should be addressing somewhere. Anybody else have anything on this before we move into regular meeting? All right.
Just thank you to Tara.
Karen, you want to stick around and watch the, the ship at sea sail?
Oh, I wouldn't miss it.
Don't click leave. Okay. All right, the first one that we have is on subway. We have a modification resolution. Sharon, this is yours. Kinsella 2.
Yes, hi. Okay. I'm just reading the modification resolution. So in the matter of the application of Kinsella 2 minor subdivision, tax map number 300-167-4-1. I have read this resolution for the amendment and vote for its approval.
Second. Second.
Who got that? Kathy? Thanks very much. Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passed and carried 6-0. McAdoo, Kathy, yours, extension of time.
Okay. In the application of the matter of Gail McAdoo lot line modification for an extension of time for a period of 1 year within which the applicant must comply with the conditions of the board's resolutions or until November 11th, 2021. I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Ed.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried 6-0. All right, Montauk, these are site plan, the next 4. Montauk Marine Basin Communications Antennas. Lou, that's yours.
Sam, can I make a recommendation that you skip, do the other resolutions first? Because it's a bit of a unique thing. This is the first time that the board is reviewing from cityscape. So,
yeah. Well, let me ask you, Eric. That's only T-Mobile, or is it?
No, T-Mobile is not going to be on. There was an issue that it was originally on, and then we had to take it off. There was an issue.
So we don't have T-Mobile. Well, let me just, Eric, so that we're clear. I have Montauk Marine Basin Communications Antennas is the next one on my menu. And then we have T-Mobile at Town Hall. We're going to take that off.
Yep. And
then we have East Hampton House Pool. That's a resolution amending approval. Then we have Beckman Commercial Site Plan. And then after that, 2 artist studios. What am I taking off? Hey.
I think Eric is suggesting doing the Montauk Marine Basin later, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Later tonight or later?
Yes.
Yeah.
East Hampton Pool House.
I'm sorry?
East Hampton Pool, I think, is he's saying we do now.
Yeah. Skip the East Hampton Pool and Beckman and get those done, and then we'll come back to Montauk Marine Basin.
All right. I'm kind of not following why you want to do that.
Because I think
cityscape.
Because I think there's going to be some discussion, and also, you just had a discussion about Beckman and the extension of time and amending it, and Tara's here now.
Tara off the horn. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. All right. Okay. In that case, then the next one will be East Hampton House Pool resolution amending approval, and that's Ed.
That's me.
That's you.
In the matter of the application of East Hampton House Pool Site Plan, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-188-2-4, a resolution amending approval. I have read the resolution and call for its adoption.
Second.
Kathy, second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passing carried 6-0. And now if we can get the drum roll machine. Next is Beckman Commercial. And Ian.
I'm going to abstain on this because I don't think it's ready to go. So could somebody else read it?
Well, you can read it in and just not vote for it. At least that's my understanding.
Well, normally you move for adoption, but I'll read it in.
Well, you can move for adoption and vote against it. I've done that.
Yeah, we've been doing that.
Or can't you move not to adopt it?
I tell you what, Ian, if you're uncomfortable with it, we can.
Seems like a better thing to do to have somebody else.
No, I get that too. Kathy, if you would.
Yeah, I just need to, I don't have the paragraph.
I've got it. I'll read it.
Okay. Huh?
The new paragraph that Thomas was working on?
Oh,
Yes.
no, I don't have that. Sorry.
I have the resolution.
Okay.
But aren't we going to include that language in
I
it?
think the way we should do this is you make a motion to approve the extension
As amended.
and then Thomas will then read in the modification so that we all have it. And
All
then
right.
vote.
Is that okay with Thomas? That sound good?
Well, the question is, Thomas ready?
Okay, all right. So in the matter of the application of Beckman Commercial Building Site Plan, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-181-4-12 for an extension of time, for a period of 1 year or until January 28th, 2022, including an amended paragraph by council.
Yeah, including an amendment to add a paragraph 5 to the resolution stating that building permits will not issue until there's a letter in the file from the planning board stating that the sidewalk in the right-of-way versus on the subject property issue is resolved.
Okay, so I've read that resolution with that amendment as Thomas stated and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
No, just a quick question. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. Well, hold it. You know what? We got to vote. We're in the middle of the vote, so.
Okay.
All right, you'll have to hold off. Lou, were you about to second?
Yes.
We have a second. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ed?
Yeah, that was an aye.
That was an aye. Thank you. And Sharon, that was an aye?
Yes.
Okay. All those opposed? Ian?
No, I just abstain. I'm not opposed.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, and all those abstaining?
Aye.
That's Ian. Okay. All right, so passes 5-0, 5 in favor, 0 against, 1 abstain. Okay. All right, Tara, before you unplug, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know why it's January 20. I know the original resolution was February 20, 2018, and the extension is for a year or January 28th, 2022, and it's now June. So it's like 6 months.
Yeah, I can't answer that. I don't know.
I'm gonna turn it over to planning board and staff and ask an answer for that.
It goes according to the resolution of approval. Let's see when that one was.
Seems like it ought to be February 28th, no?
It's not. It goes according to when the resolution of approval stated the
original
amount of
was
time.
February 28th, 18, Jody.
And then you were given like 3 years to obtain a building permit. So that brings it to January of 2022.
Okay.
I think you'll have to enjoy the accommodation.
Okay. I'll quit while I'm ahead.
Okay?
Yeah.
Nice counsel.
Good plan.
Thank you.
Click off now.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Have a good night. All right, the last item, we'll do, Eric, should we do the 2 artist studios and then come back for for that last one in Montauk?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I didn't even know there were artist studios on here, but
Yeah, well, they're just a scheduled public hearing.
It's to schedule public hearing.
Yeah.
Whose are these?
D'Agostino probably and Moran.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Aaron and, where's my note? My note.
D'Agostino is Ed's and Marin is Sharon's.
Yeah, I have it.
Bailing us out all night, Jody. Thank you. All right, Ed, why don't you do D'Agostino?
In the matter of the application of Lucilla D'Agostino Artist Studio, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-181-4-12 103-8-28 to schedule a public hearing. A public hearing is hereby scheduled Wednesday, July 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider the said application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kathy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried 6-0. All right, and the last one is Marin, I believe. Is that the name? I apologize if I have it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Elizabeth
All right.
Marin.
In the matter of the application of Elizabeth Marin, Artist Studio, tax map number 300-168-6-4. This is to schedule a public hearing. Is hereby scheduled for Wednesday, July 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider the said application.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried 6-0. Okay, Eric.
Okay, I'm sorry though.
Who's, before we go on, who's got this is Lou, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
I'm sorry, did you guys read East Hampton House Pool? I might have just missed it.
We did.
You
Yeah.
did? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay, so Montauk Marine Basin Communications Antennas, this is just a swap out. The warehouse building on this property on Westlake Drive where they work on the boats, there's antennas on the top of it. It's a 50-foot tall building. And this is basically a simple swap out. So you should have a report from our wireless consultants, Cityscape, dated May 19th. And basically they're recommending that you approve this with 2 conditions. And we do have a resolution on for you tonight to modify the facility. I see Jessica Zalen is here. She's the agent for the applicants. So you may want to discuss the conditions with her. They were 2 simple ones. I think Cityscape just wanted a clarification on an exposure rating. And then also the second one was an RF engineer's report, which is a standard thing that we require, and there shouldn't be any problem with that. Almost all these facilities are designed to, way, shouldn't say exceed, but be way below the FCC maximum radiation limitation. So with that, I'll leave it to the board, and to Jessica.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, Ms. Zalen, have you had a chance to look at Cityscape's letter?
Yes, I have. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Zalen. I am an associate with the Amato Law Group. I am here on behalf of Verizon Wireless, the applicant in this matter. We have had a chance to look at Cityscape's memo. I do understand that Cityscape is recommending approval of the modification application with 2 conditions. The first condition, as Eric mentioned, is related to a clarification that they're requesting of the exposure category. We're having our engineer look into that, and we will provide a letter to the board's file as soon as they have come up with a resolution of that matter. With respect to the second condition, Cityscape had requested that we submit an affidavit from an RF engineer certifying compliance with the FCC's requirements. And we did provide to Eric via email on a couple of, I think a few days ago, or last week, I'm sorry, a copy of an RF engineering report prepared by EBI Consulting, which does indicate that the facility will satisfy the FCC's RF compliance requirements and guidelines.
Eric, did that letter have a chance to get over to Cityscape?
It did not. I can look it over though. I mean, it's not really a discretionary thing. If there's an engineer, a licensed engineer stamping it and saying that it's adequate, then it's really not something that they need to spend too much time on.
And the engineer, yeah, right, so the engineers, so we have that, we have it approved by an engineer?
Jessica said she emailed it to me. If I believe her, if she did, I might have responded on it, but I'll get it into the file.
But we can just ask these conditions. If it's in, it's in.
Yeah, it's already.
Well, no, the question is, Ms. Valen, it is an engineer, a licensed engineer with his stamp on it. What do they call it? A letter, I guess, or a compliance statement. We have that exists.
If we condition the approval, then we'll have to have it before they can do anything.
Yeah. And you're right, Ian, you're absolutely right. And that's the condition of a Cityscapes application. So, not application, I'm sorry, Cityscapes letter. So.
Right. So if I can just interject for a moment, I'm going to verify whether that report was stamped by an engineer. If it was not, I can certainly get an engineer stamp on the report and have that version sent over. I will just add that I believe that these are conditions that Cityscape has indicated should be resolved before issuance of a building permit.
Right. I would expect they would be. The business would be engineer stamping. We no longer have an in-place town engineer. So it becomes all the more incumbent when we have, and we rely on outside engineers, both of our own and from the applicants. So it's very important that any engineer report that goes into any file
that's fine. I will just point out that Cityscape had referenced in their letter the required affidavit. Essentially is an affidavit of compliance. It says signed by a radio frequency engineer / FCC compliance expert.
Oh, all right. Well, fine. Then within that structure, if it's an FCC compliant expert, and I don't know how you become an FCC compliant expert. I know how one becomes an engineer.
Yes.
But as long as it meets the requirements of that.
We're just spinning our wheels though, because I think we all agree.
Somebody saying.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Email is not sufficient. We need hard copies for the file.
That's fine. We can certainly submit hard copies of these materials.
Thank you very much, Jody. Boy, Jody, you're knocking them out of the park.
I just wanted to provide the email copy so it got over before the hearing, and I will, when I have that information from the engineer regarding the risk category, I intend to submit that in hard copy to the file as well, and we'll submit both of these items together I will submit both of these items together.
That's great. Okay, with that, I'm losing track. I'm sorry, it's late. Who's is this? Lou? Is this Lou?
Yeah.
It's the Lou Cortese show tonight.
Yeah.
So do I read this and say, notwithstanding all of the conversation that we just had?
No, we don't do things that way. You just
regular way. Okay. In the matter of the application of Montauk Marine Basin Communications Antennas Verizon Site Plan Special Permit Personal Wireless Service Facility Modification 2, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-6317, 20.1, 20.2, 21. I have read the resolution amending approval, and I move for its adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried 6-0. All right, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Allen. We appreciate it. And sorry you were last.
Okay, it comes with the last name territory. I've been my entire life.
You're a veteran. Okay. All right. So with that, we have a meeting next week, right?
Yep.
Right. My last question to Jody for the night, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. In that case, it is now 8:50, according to the clock in the corner. So,
motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. We are adjourned. See you all next week.
See you next week.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Thanks.